Welcome to Union News, your guide to what's happening in the UK labour and trade union movement.
In a bold move for worker rights, Keir Starmer's government has announced the repeal of the controversial minimum service levels rules, a law imposed by the previous Conservative administration that aimed to undermine the power of striking workers. Introduced in July 2022 amid a wave of industrial action, the law required workers to break strikes and maintain essential services, a measure criticised as an attack on fundamental labour rights. Despite the Conservative government's intentions to appease business leaders, the legislation was never put to use, with no employers willing to escalate tensions by enforcing it. A new report from The Big Issue reveals that poverty in Britain is out of control, with 3.8 million people struggling to afford basic necessities like food, clothing, and warmth. 40% of participants identified reducing energy bills as a key measure that could significantly help those living in hardship. Alarmingly, The Big Issue reported that the number of individuals in extreme poverty has doubled in the past 7 years. Founder John Bird criticised the government's inaction, stating, "Poverty is out of control, and our politicians repeatedly fail to act fast enough. We refuse to accept this." In response to the escalating crisis, the non-profit social enterprise is advocating for a poverty zero law, which would impose legally binding targets on governments to reduce poverty levels. Additionally, The Big Issue is launching a big community initiative aimed at fostering local solutions to poverty and urging for genuine government intervention. As the public's frustration mounts, the call for immediate and effective measures to address the growing poverty crisis in Britain has never been more urgent. Nurses across England have decisively rejected a government pay award of 5.5% for this year, according to the Royal College of Nursing, RCN. The union reported that approximately 2/3 of its members voted against the deal in a record turnout of around 145,000 nurses. The pay award, announced by Chancellor Rachel Reeves following Labour's recent election victory, has been met with fierce criticism. The RCN highlighted that the real term pay for experienced nurses has plummeted by 25% since 2010 under the previous Conservative government. This rejection marks a significant shift in nursing staff's resolve to advocate for better pay and working conditions. RCN General Secretary Professor Nicola Ranger emphasised the urgency for the government to take nurses' concerns seriously. "We are witnessing a fundamental shift in the determination of nursing staff to stand up for themselves, their patients, and the NHS," she stated. Despite members of other health unions accepting the pay deal, the RCN's stance reflects a broader discontent among nurses, who are grappling with understaffed shifts and inadequate patient care. The union also noted a worrying 21% decline in nursing student enrolments compared to 3 years ago, contributing to an NHS workforce that is already short by 32,000 nurses. Professor Ranger warned that for the NHS to improve, staffing levels must be adequate and nurses need to feel valued. She called for urgent action rather than mere promises, asserting that the expectations of government among nursing staff are significantly higher. In response, West Streeting acknowledged the challenges nurses have faced. At the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner reaffirmed the party's promise to secure basic employment rights from day one. However, many workers feel betrayed as Labour appears to have bowed to pressure from big business, delaying crucial protections. Workers have expressed frustration over the party's backsliding on its commitments. Current British Labour laws require employees to wait up to 2 years to gain protection against unfair dismissal, leaving them vulnerable during lengthy probationary periods. Reports suggest that a new bill will still allow for extended probation periods, with business leaders advocating for this compromise. Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds has emphasised the need for employers to assess new hires effectively, further fueling worker concerns. Critics argue that these measures prioritise employer interests over worker rights, effectively granting businesses a veto on labour protections. As unions mobilise to fight for fair treatment, many workers fear they will need to push harder than ever under a Labour government that seems intent on placating corporate demands